Hey, I'm Ashley from Little Explorers Big World, and I'm passionate about empowering you to explore the world with your little ones from home. Today, I'm going to be walking you through what's inside our Nigeria unit. So for those of you who have been waiting for me to get the next unit together and release, thank you so much for your patience. I reached out to several of you and asked for some help and some insight, and thank you so much to those of you who responded. It really helped make this unit awesome. Alright, so first page in the Nigeria unit, like with all of our units, is what I call the itinerary. So this just gives you some quick information about the country, some fun facts, a flag, and then a little overview of the unit itself. There's also sections on here every single time for films or TV shows set in that particular country, books that would go along well with that unit, and then just a note for parents down here so you kind of know the heart and the reason behind what I'm doing with these units. Next up are two pages that I know you'll be familiar with if you've been with us for long. This is the handwriting page where kids can color this in, they can trace it, and then it also gives them some initial sound practice. My son loves these, and it's really cool to see how his handwriting improves each time we do a new unit. If you put them all together, it's really cool to see his progress. And the same with the flag page where they can copy the flag down here and just kind of get that in their heads. That's what the flag looks like. So here is the photo page, which is also included in every unit, and the initial sound cards where they would just match, like this is a photo of Africa, so they would choose A for Africa just to get those initial sounds reiterated in their minds, give them some practice with that. Next we have our coloring pages, and I've done something a little different. I've put a little blurb at the bottom of the image on why that image is significant for that particular culture. So we've got, like, that was a Nigerian giraffe or West African giraffe, which is endangered. This is the Benin ivory mask, which is a big cultural symbol for Nigeria. So those are in there with a little description of what it is and why it's been included in the unit. Next, I have an art prompt for a Nigerian family compound. Something I learned about Nigeria in doing my research for this unit is that very often families will live in compounds where they'll have, say, your house and then your sister's house and your parents' house and your cousin's house, and everybody's kind of together, and it's walled in. So then that's kind of like your family is kind of like a mini community within the larger community of that neighborhood or of that town. So I just thought it was a really cool concept, and it would be a really fun concept for kids to play with. You know, what if their cousins lived right next door and they had the same backyard? Would that be cool? Would that not be good? Like, what would you like? What would you not like? So this is a prompt to get them to think about that and to draw a little picture of what they think it would be like. And then there's a couple of questions down here that they can answer, and you can write down their answers to those questions. Storytelling is a really integral part of the Yoruba tradition, one of the many people groups that's in Nigeria, but one of the largest. And so this activity is combining some literacy skills with storytelling with some fine motor skills. So they would need to cut these out. You can tape them onto some popsicle sticks, and then they can use these as little puppets to tell stories of their own, or maybe stories that they're getting from a book. So as I was researching Nigerian foods, I found several that I can't wait to taste, and I actually found a local Nigerian restaurant that I'm really excited to try soon, and I'm hoping to make that a video soon, so keep an eye out for that. If you enjoyed our cheese tasting video with the kids, I can link to that. But so I reached out to my friend Mercy, who's Nigerian, and she sent me her puff puff recipe. This is a really popular food in Nigeria, which is very similar to like donut holes or beignets, if you're familiar with those. So sweetened dough, deep fried, you can't go wrong. Every kid is gonna love them. Next is a fishing game, which is inspired by the Argungu, I hope I'm saying that right, fishing festival in Nigeria. And So this activity is really simple. They count the number of fish and they choose the right number down there. So it's kind of one-to-one counting skill, and then also number recognition down here. Next is an art project inspired by the Yoruba Adire cloth, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's worth a Google search. I couldn't find a good image on the right license for me to share and redistribute freely to be able to share with you, but there are tons of images out there. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's used doing a wax resist technique. If you follow the link right here to this video, it's really cool. You can actually see these women making the Adire cloth and painting with chicken feathers cassava root wax onto the fabric, and then when they dye the fabric and they submerge it in the ink, the dye, it doesn't dye the parts where the wax is, and so you get these beautiful designs and patterns on the cloth as a result. So this is a very simple activity using watercolor paints and crayons that has that same wax resist technique, so your kids can play with copying some of those same patterns and creating something inspired by that traditional cloth. Alright, so our action song for Nigeria I had a lot of fun with. I've always been fascinated by the ability of women, sometimes like rather petite women, to be carrying these huge like buckets of water and just crazy loads on top of their heads. And I remember the first time I was in Africa and I saw that, I remember my jaw just dropping because I had seen pictures of it and such, but then when you see a woman walk past you and she's just got this massive load on top of her head, it's like, how are they doing that? And it's, I just think it's so cool and really fascinating just that they are able to train themselves to be able to do that so proficiently. It just blows my mind. So I had a lot of fun creating an action song inspired by that technique. And it's based off of There Was an Old Woman Who Swallowed a Fly. This is There Was an Old Woman Who Went to Onitsha, and that's a very large, I think it's the largest market in Nigeria and possibly in all of Africa. I'll have to fact check that, but it's like the big market. So she goes to the market and she carries the beans on top of the onions, and she carries the peppers on top of the beans that are on top of the onions, and so it's a fun little song like that kids will enjoy. So to continue the theme from the action song, we have a head carrying game where your kids can actually try out the technique of carrying something on their heads and walking across the room with it. Alright, so the next activity is a Kingdom of Benin art prompt, I guess I would call it. It really shocked me as I started researching Nigeria and African kingdoms in general, how little I know or I knew as a college-educated history major. I feel like I could rattle off a lot about Europe, I could rattle off a lot about Asia, but these kingdoms in Africa, it really shocked me what a blind spot they were, despite being a history major. I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, where was this? Why was this not, like, why did I not know this? It was really eye-opening and really frustrating at the same time. So I wanted to put something in this unit that acknowledged and really spoke to these incredible African kingdoms that have been missing, at least in my own education, and I don't want that to be the case for my kids. If they're going to be learning about knights and castles and whatever different things in the world, why is this not included? I think it should be, because there's just such an incredible richness to the history that I think is often passed over. So that is this is the Kingdom of Benin art, and I found BBC has a wonderful resource called BBC Bite Size, and it's little educational videos and websites for children based on different historical events and such. And so they actually had something on the Kingdom of Benin with BBC. And what they have is an audio description taken from Dutch merchants who had been trading with the Kingdom of Benin, and what they saw when they're writing back, and talking about the grandeur of the king coming out and his pet leopard being led around on a leash through the city, and just really incredible images. So that activity has your child listening to that description and then drawing a picture of what they imagine that could have been like, what that might have looked like. I also link up to a great resource I found on YouTube. It's a channel called Bino and Fino, links right there, and it's a Nigerian produced kids show that actually goes into African history and African culture, and I haven't seen anything else like it. I think it's really well done, and they've got some wonderful things on the Kingdom of Benin, the Walls of Benin, which I had never heard of. Just really, really great content and a great resource. Lastly, we have the Nigerian culture matching game, and this is something else I also have in every unit. And these are just in duplicate, so 2 copies there, so they can just match them one to the other. If they're a little bit older, you can cut them out and do a memory game where you put them on their backs and they have to flip them over and find the other match. And if you've been doing this for a little while and you're learning about different continents and things like that, then you can mix the cards up and you can sort them by continent, or you can sort them by animal, or categorize them with all the different people. You can do all kinds of things with these cards, and they're meant to be combined with other units as you've gone through them, so that they can compare the French cards to the Nigerian cards, and what animal do they have in China, what animal do they have in Ireland, and just to be able to play with those and combine them, and to draw comparisons and contrasts between the differences and the similarities between these cultures. So that is the Nigeria unit. Again, thank you for your patience, and thank you for those of you that offered your input to make this unit really well-rounded and hopefully a really great representation of Nigeria and Nigerian culture. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you'll be notified every time we upload a new video. Thanks for adventuring with us.
Don't forget to subscribe.